Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Executive Speakers on Speakers Zoom edition. I'm so excited because I have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world on with me today. She's the former president of Keurig, vice president of global business management at Gillette, and she's on the board of directors for iRobot, which Roomba, if you have a Roomba, you know what that is, Corp and Hydra Facial. She has some amazing thoughts on innovation, work-life balance, as well as what it means to be one of the first females to graduate from Dartmouth. So without further ado, let's welcome Michelle Stacy. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Things are just fabulous, just great. Just happy we can be chit-chatting about all things Keurig and coffee and everything like that. So it's it's good.
This morning?
I don't drink coffee. I don't drink coffee. My wife does. My wife drinks enough of it for both of us, literally.
And I'm a coffee addict. I have to have my 2 cups every morning. It's just absolutely what I do.
So that was going to be my first question, was literally, I was like, when you were interviewing for the Keurig job, was that a question of like, hey, do you drink coffee?
It was not a question. And I had several members of my team at Keurig who, like you, were not coffee drinkers. They were either tea drinkers or didn't drink anything warm in the morning. And so it was very interesting. But, you can definitely market a product and innovate a product, even if you're not a user. I've been on nail shaving for quite a long time. And I can honestly tell you, I've never shaved my face.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So, but it's funny because I'm sure people just assume like, hey, you worked at Keurig. So now here's your next question. And this will stay between you and me. Had you drank Keurig before you started as president there?
Absolutely. And I did have a Keurig already. So I absolutely did. It was such an incredible innovation for me and my lifestyle, where my husband likes a dark roast and I like a light roast. And the other thing we always used to have when my husband and I were using a drip coffee maker was the fight when we got back at the end of the day from work of who was going to clean out the dirty grinds and the cold coffee. And it was just one of those jobs that no one really wanted in our household. So when Keurig came along, it was this very simple, easy way to change the way we drank coffee in the morning. It was perfect.
So you can put Keurig up there as helping marital bliss all over the world. So what's funny? Another big innovation I think that has helped marriages a lot is the DVR. Because no longer can someone say, hey, I'm watching TV right now. Now it's just say, let me pause it and I'll come in there and help you or talk to you whenever I need to. So anyways, exactly. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, let's talk a little about your story. So you went to Dartmouth for undergrad.
Yes, I did.
And you were one of the first females there. Talk to me about that experience and how that came about.
It was a fabulous experience. I would have to say in our household, we bleed green a little through and through. My husband's Dartmouth and both my kids are. So obviously we have a love for the school. I was a second class of women. Their ratio was 7 men to 1 woman when I entered Dartmouth. There were not yet women's restrooms and all the facilities and things like that. So it was definitely being a trailblazer. Mm-hmm. I will also say that when we arrived at Dartmouth, if you talk to people with a little bit of Dartmouth history, we weren't the most welcome gender to enter the college. I think in many ways, the men who had chosen to go to Dartmouth when it was an all-male school weren't quite ready for the arrival of us on campus. But, from a standpoint of building friends, lifelong friends, and living an experience that you don't often get a chance to be that type of a trailblazer. It was definitely wonderful. And I loved every minute I was at Dartmouth.
So I want to seize on that concept of being a trailblazer a little bit. Because I think it ties in a couple of things we want to talk about today. Talk to me about kind of, obviously just graduated from high school, going into this very prestigious school, all male. I mean, and not very many females there. I mean, what were some of the things that you were just kind of, the thoughts going through your mind? And what were some of the, I guess, kind of some of the, things you just kind of anchored onto, just kind of in those first couple of months of kind of going through being that trailblazing process?
So let's start with the fact that I went to an all-girls high school. So going to an
so you really made a big shift then.
And deciding to go to be one of the first classes of women at Dartmouth was definitely probably, if I had to go back, and granted, it's going back almost, I'd hate to say it, almost 45 years or so from high school. it was definitely a reactionary, right? I just spent 4 years in an all girls high school, and I was absolutely ready to switch that ratio. I think the first thing was how quickly the female friendships developed because there were so few of us on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, on a social side point, and I will say this with a little bit of humor, 18-year-old boys, 18 to 20-year-old boys aren't the most confident people in the world.
Shocker. So, that I've never heard that before. Alex has not heard that before either.
Never, right? And there were only really about 500 women on campus. So we were all pretty well known amongst the male undergraduates. And so there wasn't a lot of dating to start off with, because you had to be fairly confident to date one of these Dartmouth women and kind of swim up the screen. I will say that amongst the classes that were the first class, most of us are married to Dartmouth men. Though most of it happened either postgraduate or in the last year, in our senior years, et cetera. The first 2 years was a little bit of a rough go of it.
I'm sure so. But I feel like that experience had to set you up well for your work at Gillette, because you go from kind of a one male dominated field to, again, selling men's shaving products.
Absolutely. Well, I think what it would say is, from there, I went to business school, and business school was also very much at the time more male undergrad or graduate students than there were female graduate school students. And certainly through most of my time in the first 20 years of my career, women were starting to make our way up through to the executive level. I think you really learned how to communicate with men. There's absolutely no question in parts of my early career that, as a woman, you had less room in which you're, less behavioral room, if you wanted to say.
Sure.
You had a narrower path that you had to walk in terms of how you interacted with people. And I'm sure that my time at Dartmouth and at graduate school at Northwestern really helped out in preparing me for that. I can still chug a beer pretty quickly. I hate to say that. It's a skill set I learned at Dartmouth, in that sense of you've got to be able to join them and play hard. I can still chug a beer pretty quickly, but we're not going to demonstrate that.
Oh, that is hilarious. What did you learn at Dartmouth from the guys? Well, I learned how to chug a beer quick. That's pretty much it.
I learned how to chug a beer, play beer pong, play whale's tails. And I bet you that that's not too different than people today.
No.
When they go to college, right?
No. It's probably just, probably just part of it. So, okay. So you went to business school, and then, I kind of want to fast forward a little bit to your time at Gillette. You're sitting here, you're vice president of global business management at Gillette. I'm always curious what day one looks like in a job like that. Like, you've got the title, you've gone through it, you sit down at your desk, you take a deep breath. What does day one look like? Like what is the first thing that you want to do? Like, what is the first thing that you want to achieve? What did that kind of conversation look like? What's kind of your process on that?
I think the first thing to say is when I made GM Vice President Global Business Management, I'd been at Gillette quite a few years, right?
Sure.
So I started there, and I had a wonderful 25-year career with Gillette, and I have nothing but the most wonderful things to say about that company. I think when you get that promotion, you're prepared for it. At least in the Gillette world, you were prepared for it, right? You had the background, you had the skill sets, you had the processes. I think the first thing you really do when you get that type of a promotion is you start to think about, what are the ways that I can impact this business? What's the state? And so you spend a little bit of time actually looking at what is the state of the business on a global basis. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? What are the areas of opportunities? What does your consumer think about you? What consumers do you need to bring into the franchise that you might not have brought in to date? And you really do a deep dive analysis that allows you to think about, what can I do going forward to impact the business, grow it, make it more profitable?
Yeah.
And you put that sort of a plan together. I think the other thing that I very much believe in all the roles I've ever had is, how do I build on what's gone on in the past? I think that's a very important thing. When you come into a new role, you make the assumption that the people behind you have done a pretty good job.
Sure.
What can you learn about what the people behind you or that you're following have done? What did they see, and how can you continue to build on it versus completely change it? And I think that's a very important thing, particularly in ongoing companies like Gillette's and the big companies where you're stepping in to a role that either somebody has just left and been promoted from or left to go to a different place. Assume that they did a pretty good job. They had some insights that you can build on.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really, like I said, very, very insightful things. So whenever you were the GM at Gillette, what were some of the big innovation kind of products that you worked on, or kind of some big innovation things that you did?
So I was in the vice president global business management role a number of times. One for Waterman and Parker pens, which were at the time in that period fine writing instruments that were a very big gift item. And really one of the things we did was to reposition both brands with the consumer as being like a piece of jewelry, a wonderful gift that you could give somebody. Sure. And that was very fitting to the times of the mid to late 90s. I then went on to be vice president of global business management for oral care. And one of the roles when I hit the GM role was to consolidate the Oral-B and Crest professional businesses, because Procter & Gamble had just acquired Gillette. So from a standpoint of innovation there, the real issue was around how do I bring two companies with different cultures together? And how do I bring two very different business models together? Where the Crest business model around the professional was more profit driven, the Oral-B business model around the professional was more around a self-funding marketing expense, a way to get the dentist to recommend that you use Oral-B. And so you had to consolidate two different business models into one and two different cultures into one. And that was an incredible assignment. It thinks about innovation in a different way. We all think about innovation as great new products that hit the market, but there are other ways to think about innovation in a company around processes, around ways of doing business. And those are important things to look at when you're thinking about innovation as well.
So again, you talk about processes, and obviously I think it's got to be hard, because when we go into a company like Gillette and, talk about Waterman pens, something that, obviously had a very good brand around it. People had heard of it, and it was this really nice gift idea. Talk to me kind of about the tension between wanting to honor or use or, not throw the baby out of the bathwater with what's been successful with, but also understanding, hey, we need to innovate here, because if we're just sitting here, if we just sit on it, it's probably going to fade out and die or go away or lose market share.
That's absolutely correct. So Waterman had this incredible reputation of being French design, believe it or not. And it was a very big brand in Europe. And what we really wanted to do is, how do we elevate the design element of Waterman so that it doesn't, if you think about it, we had two brands. We had Parker and Waterman, both competing at similar price points, but we needed to distinguish them in the consumer's mind. And so, Parker was a little bit more conservative. It was a little bit more male driven. It was a little bit more business driven. And Waterman was a little bit more design driven and color driven and, fine metals driven, and even had pens that were made out of wood. So we really tried to take the Waterman piece and push it into the design realm, and take the Parker piece and push it into the, graduation, job piece to sort of distinguish the two. Waterman was a little bit more the self-purchase of a very fine piece of design. And Parker was a little bit, let me give you that because you just graduated from college.
That's cool. I mean, it's a great distinction to make. And I think the thing too is, obviously it gives the consumer a very clear storyline of, hey, this is when you buy this is when you buy that.
Yes, exactly. But you can't actually say that to the consumer. It's about how you position it in the advertising, and how you position it in the store and the types of materials you put around it, and even the gift box that you put something in.
Yeah, very cool. So I want to jump to Keurig because the Keurig story is so interesting because no one had heard of it. And then it just kind of like, for people on the outside, it just kind of came out of nowhere where it's like, now everyone has one. And it's like, they're in hotel rooms, they have them. It's literally almost like an overnight sensation in some people's minds, in some consumers' minds. It really just kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, these things are really cool.
Well,
but I know that it wasn't just a company that just showed up and then 2 weeks later, like had all this market share. So
it didn't. I think, we launched Keurig. I wasn't a part of Keurig in 2000, but we launched Keurig in 2000. And we launched it largely in what we call the B2B consumer facing arena. Mm-hmm. So that's when you can still find Keurigs in automobile dealerships, law offices, gyms, things like that. We wanted the consumer to familiarize themselves with getting a cup of coffee out of a Keurig in a place like a car dealership. Mm-hmm. And that also gave us about 5 to 7 years where we could take the machine, which when it was in a car dealership was close to $1,000, and downsize it in size and downsize it in cost so that it could become a home machine.
Sure.
And the home business, the B2C, selling to the consumer, a Keurig machine, really started around, I want to say 2006, 2007. And I came on the business in 2008. It's about $100 million business at the time, maybe $200 million business at the time. And in the 4 years I was there, that's when you really sort of said it came on the scene in a huge way. It came on between 2008 and 2013. The business grew from machine and K-Cup from about 200 million to 4.5 billion. It was a massive growth.
Yeah, that's a lot. Alex, I think Alex just fell out of his chair here. Okay, why? How? Give me the playbook. How did it happen?
I don't think, I think
what did you do?
There's
Give me the secret sauce. What did Michelle Stacy do? It's Dartmouth, right? It's a Dartmouth education.
No, absolutely not. I think there's a little bit of luck in any of these sorts of things, and quite a bit of strategy as well. So it was a combination of the two things. We took a lot of risk along the way, and those risks really paid out. I think I would put it down to a few things. I think, first of all, there were two things about Keurig. We not only did consumers like the machine for all of the reasons that it made making coffee simple, it gave you a great cup of coffee in the morning, but in some way, we got them to go from like to love. And there were, we got people named their Keurigs, people hugged their Keurigs. To people, it changed their morning routine. It gave them 4 extra minutes or 5 extra minutes, and we don't realize how important those are, to just sit with their Keurig, with their cup of coffee, and relax and not think about making the coffee, cleaning the coffee, getting their husband a cup of coffee or their wife a cup of coffee. It was a little bit of time to just reflect in the morning. And they fell in love with their machine. Whenever you can combine a great product and get the consumer to move to love, you have a winner. People love their iPhone, right? And if you think about it and go back and we call these people super consumers. When you can actually combine a great product with love in a consumer's mind, they will do anything for you. And the types of things they do for you is the first thing they almost always do is they're willing to try other things from you. So go back in your mind, even if you're not a Keurig user, and think about a product that you truly love. It can be a pair of shoes, can be a service, a restaurant. If you think about it, it's not just the product itself, but it's how you feel when you're there. If it's your favorite restaurant, it's not just that they serve you good food, but they probably have a special table, a special ambiance. They might know your name. The bartender might know your favorite drink. It's something special. I'm in love with Rothy shoes. It's the whole environmental side of it. It's the choice of colors. There's something beyond just the fact that the shoe fits that I absolutely love it. if you think about that brand in your mind, you're also probably willing to try the next big innovation. Rothy's introduced a purse. I was right there. I bought it right away. If your favorite restaurant opens another restaurant, or your favorite chef opens another restaurant, you're probably willing to go there right away, right? Mm-hmm. So you try more things. And the other important thing that love and being a super consumer gets you to is word of mouth. I can't, right now I'm telling you about Rothy shoes. I don't work for Rothy's. I've never done, but I'm giving you word of mouth. I bet you when your favorite restaurant, you've told your other friends about, you've got to go there. It's just this fabulous restaurant. You'll love the chef or you'll love the bartender. So one of the big things when we identified that and began to be able to really create that love relationship between consumers and the Keurig machine, we were able to get word of mouth. And it's the most effective way to grow the business, right?
Well, it's funny because we say the same thing in the speakers industry now, even with the advent of all the social media and the YouTube and the videos and things like that. The number one, the strongest thing I think from a speaker getting booked is word of mouth of friends saying, "Hey, I heard so-and-so speak at this event. You need to have them."
You need to have it. And so that's that love relationship that super consumers do for you. I think the second thing that really made Keurig take off is really thinking out of the box about relationships with other brands and competition. So often we don't think about how we can build something with our competitors.
Sure. Yeah. Why would you?
Why would you? Exactly.
Why would you?
Up until then, every single serve coffee maker had been, including Keurig, buy my coffee maker, drink my coffee. Mm-hmm. And we sort of started to think, well, consumers don't want to just drink. We were owned by Green Mountain Coffee. People don't want to just drink Green Mountain Coffee. They want to drink their Starbucks. They want to drink their Folgers. They want to be able to get Dunkin' Donuts. So a really big risk that Keurig took, being owned by Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, by a coffee company. Can you imagine going into a group of coffee people and saying, we think we're really all will grow a lot more if we invite Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, and Folgers into our system. And there was
were you the one that had that conversation with him that got to pitch the idea?
Myself.
Were you the sacrificial lamb?
I was, a little bit the sacrificial lamb, but our CEO was fully supportive of doing it as well. And so one of the biggest risks we took as a company was to go out and build relationships that allowed us to bring Folgers, Starbucks, and Dunkin' Donuts, being the three big ones, into the franchise in ways that benefited us in the long run. And so those relationships were very unique relationships. They weren't quite licensees, but they were, we call them shared profit relationships, but it was totally different. It was about thinking about our business as a network. Where you were inviting other people into the network, and how do you run a network to the benefit of everybody? Right. And that was probably the second big thing that really propelled Keurig, because the minute consumers said, I can buy a Keurig and I can drink 100 different coffee brands or, coffee brands and coffee types, it opened up the willingness for consumers to spend the money to put a Keurig on the counter. And those two things, the love relationship and the opening up of the network, really propelled Keurig to its high growth levels. And both were innovations in their own right.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating, the whole network thing, and just, again, a different way to think about competition. And that's pretty fascinating. So going back to super consumers, I mean, I think it's such a fascinating question. I'm sure it's one that's debated around boardrooms and Zoom calls all over the place. It's, how do you move someone from like to love? And I'm curious, whenever you were at Keurig, was it did the word super consumer come up, or is it more of an organic thing when it says, okay, so all of a sudden we have this very passionate fan base, let's figure out how he got here? Or is it more of we need to build this, and this is what that group looks like?
So first of all, I want to credit Eddie Yoon, with Eddie Will Grow. He was a consultant who worked quite a bit with Gillette as being really sort of the founder in the way of crystallizing the words super consumer and moving them forward. But if you think about it, the brand, even go way back in history, go back to Gillette Sensor, and your younger audiences might not remember the early 90s when Sensor came out and the campaign, the best a man can get, came along. But that was probably one of the first brands that really started to marry the idea of shaving and love, right? Up until that point, men sort of thought of shaving as one of the 3 S's they did in the morning, and I won't say what those 3 S's are, or at least what the first one is. And it was really a chore, right?
Right.
And then Phil Duesenberry from the ad agency for Gillette said, Gillette is more about how a man should look and feel. And that changed and brought about the Gillette The Best a Man Can Get campaign, which changed the way men started to think about shaving, because shaving became the ability for me to pick up my baby and put it right next to my face, the ability to kiss the woman I love in a very different way and get close in a different way. It was a way to show success and caring. And all of a sudden, Gillette became bigger than the S and the first S, or one of the 3 S's, to being about making a man look and feel his very best. And then we started the 18th birthday program, where we started to mail a gift to every 18-year-old man of a Sensor razor or a Mach 3 razor or whatever. And all of a sudden, that attachment started from 18-year-olds and on. And there began this loyalty that really created the Gillette franchise, to some extent, even till today, though I think in the last 5 to 10 years, they've lost a little bit of it.
Sure.
But if you think about it, it was a very conscious effort to move from doing a job to an emotional attachment with a product. I think at Keurig, so I'm winding back to your question. I think at Keurig, we realized that we did a job and we did it better than anybody else. But when we started to see how consumers were writing into us about it, we realized that we could move it to an emotional attachment. And so we helped that along in the way we spoke about the brands, in the way we interacted with consumers who wrote into us, in the way we sent emails out. It was all about fostering that emotional attachment to the brand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I want to change gears really quick. I know we're kind of running short on time, but so your career path was interesting because married, 2 kids, and it wasn't kind of this linear path where I went from one thing. There was kind of some just different turns, and one of the interesting things I've always appreciated about our conversation was kind of just our conversations, not today, but just in general, just being very honest about some of the decisions you've got to make whenever it comes to raising kids and having a career. And so I guess, the question that I would pose to you, and again, we can talk about this for days, but, making that decision, married, having kids, looking at your career, starting off with the perceptions you had of how it was going to be, and then looking back on it of how it was. What were some of the things you wish you told yourself in the beginning when it's like, hey, I wish I could have just said, hey, set myself down and say, listen, this is what you think. This is how it's going to be, though.
I was dual career. I raised 2 kids, and I've worked throughout my career. I think what I say to a lot of people is, you can have it all, but you can't have it all of the time. And I think that when I came into my career, there was a TV commercial for a perfume called Aviance, which, you brought home the bacon, you fried it up in the pan, and you never ever let him forget he was a man. And, it's this woman and doing all of these different chores. And the reality is that person doesn't exist, or if they do, I'd really like to meet them. You do have to give up things along the way, but in the scheme of a lifetime, you can have it all. And I think that what I learned was you can't have it all of the time.
Right.
There were certainly times when I did have it all, but there were times when my family had to take a bigger role. And sometimes when that happens, we don't deliver everything we can deliver at work. And that that's whether it's male or female. This is not a gender issue, right? There are times, I had a period in my life where my mom had Alzheimer's. I had two kids, one was in middle school and one was in elementary school. And I just couldn't deal emotionally with the stress of both leadership, a global leadership role, and all the family obligations I had. And I had to take a step back. And, I stepped back into a special assignment role, which, everybody sort of thinks that means you're leaving. And I did that for 2 years. It took 2 years for me to get myself back emotionally on a track where I could go back and contribute the way I needed to contribute to be in a line role. And I think there were other times in my career when I think about it that, I didn't deliver the way I could have, or because there were other things on my plate. And it's certainly true when I look at my husband's career. And I think as leaders of other people, we have to realize that business is a long time. And that not everybody's going to perform at their very best every year of their life. It's just not possible, right? We all have other distractions. And I wouldn't even want to use the word distractions. We have other commitments and things that are important in our lives. And I think we have to believe in people and know that there are going to be these cycles in everybody's life. I think we also have to give ourselves a break sometimes, right? Too often we don't give ourselves a break and say, what, I need to catch my breath for a year. And the other piece I often say to people is don't measure yourself by anybody else's timeline. We start our careers early on and we go, boy, I got to get that promotion 2 years in. If I don't have it, I'm behind the class of, my college classmates or my business school classmates, or I joined the company at the same time as somebody else and I should be promoted at the same time. You know what? Run your own timeline. Careers last, I guess I'm 45 years into my career at this point. Careers last a really long time. I think if you looked at all of the people who entered Gillette in 1982, 83 and at that time said, do you think Michelle will run a $2.5 billion division of a company? I don't think anybody would have said that's Michelle. Business is a long time. Give yourself a chance to grow, to mature. Don't measure yourself by anybody else. And don't make necessarily anybody else's goals your own. I think that's another important thing.
That was really good, Michelle. That was a great answer. I got to tell you, there's a lot there. There's a lot of wisdom there. So, wow. Thanks for that. You can unpack that for a while. Okay, we're going to stop there because, that's some profound advice. But Alex, we are going to do? We're going to play 3 random questions with Michelle. She's so nervous about this right now. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so Michelle and I have bonded over our love for The Bachelor. So I'm going to ask Michelle 3 random questions about The Bachelor.
Oh, gosh. All right. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. All right, Michelle. So all right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, question number 1, and this is not multiple choice, so you just gotta make a guess. Okay. How many Bachelor contestants? Now, this is just The Bachelor, not The Bachelorette combined. So just the Bachelor contestants are still together.
I want to say 3.
Oh my gosh, she got it right. Wow. Yes, Michelle, you're correct. Okay, so Ari and Lauren are still together, Sean and Catherine, and Molly and Jason. And if you need last names, you're not cool because you should know them by their first names. Right. Wow. Okay, great. Okay, question number 2. Very good. All right, very good, Michelle. Okay. On average, how much money does the lead in The Bachelor or Bachelorette make? And this is multiple choice. So on average, how much money paid by the show does The Bachelor or Bachelorette make? Is it A, $50,000, B, $500,000, or C, $100,000?
C.
She's 2 for 2, Alex. This is amazing. She's 2 for 2. So about $100,000 is average. Emily Maynard, though, negotiated her way up to $250,000. I think she's the highest paid Bachelorette.
I would have to say that I definitely guessed at that one because I knew 500,000 was too much and I knew 50 was too low. So I kind of, that was a lucky guess at what I believe a show would pay somebody.
Okay, well, there you go. It's good. So we're 2 for 2 going into the third one. Okay, this is one of my favorites. Okay, what is the most common first name for a Bachelor contestant? What is the most common first name for a Bachelor contestant? Is it A, Lauren, B, Katie, C, Nicole or Nikki, or D, Christy or Christine? Lauren, Katie, Nicole, or Christine?
Katie.
Oh, Michelle.
I blew it.
You're so close. It's Lauren.
It's Lauren? Oh my gosh. Okay.
There have been 15 Laurens that have competed on The Bachelor. 15.
I had no idea about that.
Well, I didn't either until, like I said, until what we've done without the internet. I don't know. So anyways, all right. Hey, 2 for 3 is good. 2 for 3 is really good, especially because you got I didn't think you would get the first one, but you did. So anyways, Michelle, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and we so appreciate it. And for those people who are wanting more information on Michelle, go to our website, www.executivespeakers.com. You can get speech topics, video, bio, and all kind of good stuff on Michelle. So Michelle, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you too.
Take care. Bye.